Welcome to this beautiful space. My name is Pettersson. I'm the Global Executive Director of Equality Now, which is the current secretariat of the Global Campaign for Equality and Family Law, the host of today's event. We welcome you to this side event on the economics of family law, a domino effect on gender equality, which is co-sponsored by the government of Sweden and Chile, UN Women, and ACT Alliance, as well as the coordinating committee members of the global campaign, including Osama, just identify yourself, the actor to Sweden, the African Women's Development and Communications Network of FEMNET, Women Learning Partnership, Cladem, there you go. Muslims for Progressive Values, and of course, Equality Now. The global nature of the coalition reflects the global nature of the issues that we are trying to address. It has some form of family law, which too often is discriminatory, governing marriage, unions, and family matters. These discriminatory laws severely restrict and undermine the fundamental rights of women and girls, including their right to education, economic opportunity, political participation, civic engagement, and as we know, bodily autonomy. The Global Campaign for Equality and Family Law was formed with a shared understanding and urgency that there cannot be a society, equal society, without equality in the family. The goal of the Global Campaign is to achieve equality for women, girls, and other marginalized groups under laws, policies, and practices that relate to families and all their diversity, regardless of religion and culture. The side event today includes an exceptional lineup of speakers, including representatives from government, the United Nations, the World Bank, and leading global, regional, and national advocates dedicated to reform discriminatory laws to advance global gender equality. If you're sharing about this event on social media, we request you to use the hashtag #FreeOurFamilyLaws alongside CSW68. I would like to invite Sarah Hendricks, Director of Policy, Program, and Intergovernmental Support Division at UN Women, to kindly open the session.
Wonderful. What a beautiful room we're in today. This is absolutely gorgeous, and thank you so much for gathering us and for the leadership. Good evening, all colleagues. It's a pleasure, really, to welcome everybody to this event on the economics, I should say, of family law and the transformative potential, and to look at the domino effect on gender equality. I think this is a moment also to take a step back and to reflect on the potential impacts of discriminatory laws on the economic autonomy of women, really within the family as an institution, but also women's economic power within their societies at large. Of course, the family tends to be the primary setting in which we see patriarchy and gender inequalities at play, whether that's in terms of unequal inheritance rights or spousal obedience or limited autonomy to sign contracts or to make decisions about household economic resources, or even constrained mobility within the family. These are just a few of the ways that this type of discrimination plays out and the way that patriarchy plays out. And connecting this to the theme of the Commission on the Status of Women is, of course, important, because these types of discriminatory laws, these practices, I should say, trap women and girls in cycles of poverty. They directly impact on women and girls' ability to have agency, ability to be economic actors, because fundamentally their economic potential is curtailed. Very, very fortunately, the campaign that you are seeing here, the global campaign for equality in family law, and all its partners are working to change this. We are so proud as UN Women to be part of the coordinating committee of leading women's rights organizations as part of this, and working together, hand in hand, to achieve gender equality under the law in all matters relating to the family, and to do so in a way that is aware but works regardless of religion and culture. Over 3.7 billion women across the globe face discrimination in law right across the world. That's a big number, 3.7 billion women. And actually, if you were to ask me today, I started my career with women in the law in Southern Africa more than 20 years ago, 23 years ago. If you were to ask me to back then if I thought we would still be facing the entrenchment of discriminatory laws, I would have, in my youthful optimism, said, no, of course not. Of course the world will be different. And so the very fact that 3.7 billion women face discrimination in law across the world is sobering. At UN Women, we will and we do continue to advocate for changes to laws, to advocate for gender equal laws and gender equal constitutions. We lead the UN system's overall framework as well as efforts on discriminatory laws, and at the same time working to push for the repeal of those that actually directly discriminate against women. A few examples that might be helpful just to contextualize things. By way of example, we provided technical support on the reform of the Succession Act in Uganda, which equalized inheritance rights between women and men. So incredibly important in order to access household resources, economic resources, and to see that potential pathway out of poverty. In Bahrain, we assisted in the reform of the penal code, which previously allowed men to escape prosecution for rape if they married the survivor. And recently in Nepal, we advocated for the reform of the Citizenship Act to grant women more rights to acquire and pass on their citizenship. We are hopeful that future amendments to this act will actually grant full equality to men and women in this area. I do want to mention just a word on the importance of the word domino effect. It's so critical that we see this not just in the distinct arena of legal reform, but actually the dividends, the spillover effects, the domino effects that legislative reform and repeal of discriminatory laws holds in terms of advancing gender equality. They can and do contribute to a world where all women and girls can actually reach their full potential. And we've seen this. I know you've seen this in many, many settings. We've seen this, for example, in Chile, where pathways to divorce legislation actually led to improvements in child welfare, the domino effect. We've seen this recently in India, where reforms to inheritance actually increased investments in girls' education and women's access to banking, the domino effect. Back when I worked in Malawi for many years, we saw this in the advancement of the passage of a new Wills and Inheritance Act that increased women's access to their own income, that saw investment again into their girls' education and the decreased vulnerability to child early and forced marriage. These are the dividends that make the case for why this work is so powerful and for why it's so necessary. The work of all the partners here today furthers our commitments under SDG 5 and to equality in law for women and girls by 2030. The successes we've achieved tell us that gender-responsive family laws have a crucial role to play in unlocking development and economic growth for every country. I'm wishing us all very fruitful discussions. This is an extraordinarily beautiful room. And so I think it brings to us, a spirit of open dialogue together. I hope that we will, no doubt, highlight ways that we can best continue this work, that we can fast track the work on the repeal of discriminatory family laws, that we can implement and achieve gender equality for all in the home and beyond. I really look forward to the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Next, I would like to invite Pettersson, Senior Policy Specialist for Gender Equality, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, and a member of the Swedish delegation of CSW, to give a keynote. Welcome.
Hi, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our event this evening. So speaking on behalf of Sweden, we're very pleased to be a co-sponsor, and I want to thank the other organizations that have been instrumental in making this event happen. So Sweden has a long history of working for gender equality, legal equality, women's economic empowerment and social protection. That's all been fundamental cornerstones for my country's progress. And Sweden has also a long history of being a clear voice and a driving force for gender equality globally, as gender equality is a Swedish core value. It's both an end in itself and a means to achieve other aims. Within our development cooperation, we focus on women's and girls' rights and freedoms, empowerment and opportunities. And this is done through two sub-goals: promoting women's and girls' ability to freely decide over their lives and bodies, and strengthening women's and girls' economic empowerment. And we will not reach gender equality without equality in family law. The human rights of women and girls in all their diversity need to be implemented and enforced throughout their lives, and legal equality is crucial in order to achieve this. It is essential for women's and girls' rights to freely decide over their own bodies, and we can never accept the pandemic proportion of gender rights violence, including FGM, and that girls are forced into marriage, often with devastating consequences for their overall well-being, sexual health, access to SRHR, education, and economic empowerment. Rights within marriage and the right to divorce and the custody rights are as important. Equality in family law also reduces legal hindrances for women's economic empowerment through the right to inherit land and property rights. And equal access to resources is fundamental for achieving gender equality. And the importance of putting laws in place that do not discriminate against women and girls is clear. However, all of us in this room also know that we need to change social norms and attitudes that uphold patriarchal values and work together with men and boys in order to implement these laws. We need to support and redistribute and the redistribution of unpaid care work so that men and women share these responsibilities equally. And we must ensure that there are social structures in place that through an intersectional understanding can enable all women to fully enjoy their legal rights. So as the anti-rights movement is growing stronger, I feel privileged and honoured to be here today with all of you in our joint quest for gender equality, through joint action, and because together we are stronger. And as a representative of SIGA, I would like to thank you all in this room for the amazing work that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. I would now like to hand over to Zaina Azwar to moderate the panel of speakers. Zaina co-founded two groundbreaking women's rights groups. One was easy number two. Sisters in Islam in Malaysia and Musara that engage with Islam from a rights perspective to promote the rights of women living in Muslim context. She is currently the board chair and former Executive Director of USAWA, a global movement for equality and justice in Muslim countries. Welcome to
Hi, my speakers are here. Hi everyone. Just welcome you all to this exciting panel to make the case for family law reform, the urgency of family law reform, to make it a global priority issue. That's our big challenge. Can I invite, we have a panel of expert speakers. I'm not sure if the Chilean minister is here yet. She is great. Can I invite the minister, Antonia Oriana, Tia Tambri, Lamory, Shabwa, Neza Belkashia, and Hisham Hamid. Okay, I'm sorry we forgot to today. A message from the Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, Nada Al-Nashif. So, welcome remarks from Nada.
Distinguished delegations, dear colleagues and friends, I'm honored to join today's discussion on the intersections between discriminatory family laws and economic inequality for women and girls. Families in their diverse forms have an important role to play in protecting and promoting the rights of their members, and it's crucial that the laws that govern them, whether statutory, customary, or case laws, all ensure equal rights of women and girls in their family. International human rights law provides us with the necessary framework. It guarantees equal rights of men and women with or without disabilities in marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. It also recognizes the equal rights and responsibilities of women and men as parents and in child rearing. And yet, this is not fully reflected in a wide range of family laws or indeed in practice. Too many women and girls enter and remain in marriages without their full and free consent, including through child enforced marriage, often missing out on critical opportunities for education, gainful work, and participation in public life. In many countries, the laws still fail to protect women and girls from violence in the family. Its economic impacts are significant, ranging from increased costs for health and protection services and the loss of current and future income. Many women and girls are denied equal right to ownership, use, and inheritance of family lands and properties. According to the World Bank, nearly 40% of countries limit women's property rights. And despite their significant contribution to family life through unpaid care work, the economic value of such contribution remains sadly not recognized. For example, at the distribution of marital property at divorce. Under some religious or customary family laws, in the case of divorce or widowhood, fathers or male family members keep legal guardianship over decisions on the life and property of children. This restricts mothers' control over expenses on child rearing when they have physical custody of children. Dear colleagues and friends, regardless of the types of legal system, the right to equality in the family must be guaranteed. This is crucial to enable women's autonomy and equal participation in all areas of life, including economic life. The UN human rights system has been elaborating guidance in this regard. For example, the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, has elaborated recommendations on women's rights and economic consequences of marriage, family relations, and their dissolution. The Working Group on Discrimination Against Women and Girls has analyzed discrimination against women in cultural and family life. Our office has also issued a report on the contribution of the family in realizing the right to an adequate standard of living for its members, and we will develop guidelines on a human rights-based approach to prevent and eliminate child and forced marriage. In celebrating the 30th anniversary of the International Year of the Family, I call on states to take concrete actions to reform family laws that discriminate against women and girls, and we stand ready to support your initiatives in this regard. Thank you for your attention. Wishing you all a very fruitful discussion today.
That's a very important call to state. So we're like a bit behind in terms of time. So we're going to try and fit everybody in here. UN Women and the UN Statistics Division estimate that at the current rate of progress, it may take, ready for this, not surprising actually, 286 years, 11 more generations to close the gap in legal protection between men and women and remove laws that discriminate against women and girls just on the basis of the sex. One legal framework, we all know, where there continues to be so much resistance to reform towards equality and justice is, of course, the area of family law, and that's why we're here today. And yet, we all know that without equality in the private sphere of the family, there will be no equality in the public sphere. 2030 is only 6 years away. We're supposed to end discrimination against women. How do we leave no one behind when in so many parts of the world, women continue to be discriminated against in their daily lives and the laws that govern marriage and family? The world is certainly not on track, we know that. But we at the Global Campaign are determined to shape the world and move forward to make the case for equality in family law as a priority global issue and get governments to take action, to turn words and commitments at the global level. They happily sign all these treaties and declarations, but nothing happens on the ground. So we at the Global Campaign want to mobilize action to bring change on the ground. So today our speakers will make the case to why discriminatory family laws are harmful to women's economic agency and why equality in the private sphere is necessary for equality in the public sphere. And also share with you some strategies that have worked and progress that has been made. So we're going to divide this session into 3 rounds of questions. We start with the first round on the impact of discriminatory family laws and what the evidence is showing us. So the first question goes to Hishama Hamid, our head honcho for the Global Campaign. Hishama, please set the global context for us. From the evidence from the Global Campaign's findings, how are the economic rights of women affected by these discriminatory family laws and practices?
Thank you, Saya. It is so wonderful to see a room full of folks talking about family law. This has been the coalition's dream come true, so thank you for being here. So in terms of family law, just for the benefit of everyone in the room, what we mean by family laws and practices are 1, codified laws, that are laws that enact legislation, court procedures, rules and regulations, body of statutes, but also uncodified family laws and practices that involve customs and traditions of tribes and faith communities. And what we're seeing from the global context, particularly when it comes to the global south, is that financial rights and economic rights of women are being affected in all areas of family law. From the time of entry into marriage and unions, during marriage and unions, and at the time of dissolution of marriage and unions, and in the general family setting. From being denied the agency to consent, as we've heard before, to the fact that there are laws that still prohibit husbands from denying women the right to employment, even earning an income. These laws still exist in the law. And of course, we see this particularly stark inequality that happens at the time of divorce. Unpaid care work is still not recognized as a non-monetary contribution at the time of divorce. Majority of family laws and practices around the world do not, in fact, account for unpaid care work as part of the matrimonial and property rights division. So what we're seeing globally, and Thea will bring the statistics for us as well, are statistics that are startling and yet have not been part of the feminist human rights conversations about labor and property rights and in terms of economic advancement. And so we're really here to have this conversation today. As a Sri Lankan and an activist as well, who's pushing for the reform of the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, what we can say is there are strong lived realities and evidence that is showing us that women are being discriminated on a daily basis, multiple times throughout their lifespan. And so it's an ongoing human rights violation, and we need to see it as one. Given the range of economic crises and conflicts and kind of crises that we see in the world, the inequality in the family is being sort of amplified by the crises that we see. And so very much part of the conversations that we're having about how to resolve global crises and how can we advance gender equality in the midst of global crises. So simply put, as stated in the CEDAW General Recommendation 29 and Article 16, that family market research has established that family structures and gender labor division within the family and family laws affect women's economic well-being no less than labor market structures and labor laws. I would go one step further to say that family laws and practices, in fact, might be one of the direct contributing factors to the inequalities that we see in labor force participation and economic rights as a whole. So that's my overview, and we'll definitely get into detail.
Thank you, Vishama. The World Bank Women Business and Law Initiative is an amazing report that we use a lot, using the data to make a case for reform using evidence. Your annual report with data from 190 economies, and those of you who have not used the report, I really urge you. These affect, all these laws and regulations will affect women's economic opportunities. What is this data showing us on the impact of legal inequalities in marriage, mobility, assets, care work on women's economic rights and well-being?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in this full room. Just released a report last week, the 2024 report, and this report is really adding a lot more information than we had before. So we previously looked at the indicators that follow the women's working life, from freedom of movement to rights in the workplace, of course, rights in the home, because equality of women in the family. We added 2 new indicators this year on women's safety and childcare, which are critical areas that prohibit women from being on equal footing with men when it comes to equal opportunities. And once we added these 2 new indicators, the gap that we find is even wider than we previously thought. Women have only 2/3 of the legal rights of men around the world. And that's just, in 2024, it's shocking that we're still talking about things like freedom of movement, equality in the workplace, equal pay. All of those things lead to less agency that women have and less ability to react to shocks when they happen. We also added a critical element, which is not just for these laws to be written, but also to be implemented. So we're looking at implementing mechanisms that need to exist for laws to realize women's rights in practice. So when it comes to issues of mobility, for example, we added a new question on the ability of women to confer citizenship to spouses and children, which still does not exist in 50 countries around the world, and really prevents women's mobility. But we're also looking at whether public transport policies consider the specific needs of women. Women have different travel patterns than men. They often use public transportation more than cars, and they often have to travel between their home and the workplace in many different places around to have children, to care for other family members, to do lots of different things. But only 20-some countries have public transport laws that consider women's specific needs, which often have to do with their safety. When we talk about women's safety, we're here looking at child marriage laws, looking at domestic violence, and sexual harassment not only in the workplace, but in public spaces, online, and education. So I hope that you can read the report, wpl.worldbank.org. We have data for 190 countries, and I don't want a lot of time, so I won't go into all the shocking and depressing statistics and how many countries still have the restrictions that have been mentioned. But change has been very slow, and when it comes to family law in particular, I just had a literature later, we're seeing less and less reform, but it's really needed. And so we hope that with this new information on not just the laws, but policies that implement the laws, we can really start seeing change on the ground.
Well, thank you for the important data collection that you're doing, that we can make a stronger case for the urgent need for family law reform. We will now go to Minister Antonia. Minister, according to the World Bank, we use the World Bank data a lot, Chile actually performs better
than the world average and has shown significant progress over time. And however, it continues to have the lowest score among high-income OECD economies. And one of the reasons identified by the World Bank report is the default marital regime in Chile, where the husband in a heterosexual marriage, not in same-sex marriage, but in a heterosexual marriage, the husband is deemed the head of the family and controls not just the marital property, but also the property owned by the wife. Please share with us how this marital regime affects not just individual women, but also the economic participation of women in Chile.
Thank you very much for the welcome and thank you for your answers. And to begin with, I would like to tell you that just in 2005, we had a divorce law. And that just in 2005, we had equal rights to children, no matter what if their parents were married. Actually, I was just interrupting that I don't know if my last name is Orellana, because we are a family of illegitimate times back then. And then 14 years ago, the state of Chile was only obliged to modify the marital partnership regime, which the World Bank rightly identifies as a factor for the acceleration of the country. The obligation to change this law is the result of a commitment made in 2008 before the Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, in the framework of the Family Settlement Agreement in the case of Mrs. Sonia Arce, a great Chilean woman who denounced that this regime constituted gender discrimination because despite having inherited assets from her parents, neither she nor her sister could sell them since they required the approval of their husbands, whose whereabouts they did not know. To this day, the matrimonial regime of the conjugal partnership, according to our civil code, established by the fact of marriage, a partnership of assets is contracted between the spouses and the husband takes over the administration. This is the default regime to marriage, which means that it's the most used in the rural and more poor zones of our country, and is used by more than 60% of Chilean marriages. Under the current circumstances, women are forced to request their husband's authorization to administer their property, to sign deeds, and it's a minimum of dignity and autonomy for women to be able to represent themselves. Since 2008, several bills have been trying to modify the regime, seeking to establish women equality and equality between spouses, to establish the full capacity of women married under conjugal partnership to be the owner of their own lives. Our government has promoted the advancement of this project that has been in the Congress since 2008 by indicating a legislative urgency for its processing. In addition, new proposals were presented to allow marriages celebrated before the entry into force of this future law to be able to change to the new conjugal partnership. And one of the legislative priorities in the Congress of our ministry and of our government is to be able to comply with a debt that our country has held for more than 14 years, and which is urgently needed by women throughout the country. So we know that, for an example, we have just a deadly wildfire that had led to the death of more than 134 people, and actually we are not being able to reconstruct their houses because we have to find the husband to sign the authorization. And so that I want to say that it's very important that the legislation changes, because we have a commitment with Inter-American human rights system and with the CEDAW recommendation, but we have to legitimate the gender recommendation, the human rights agenda, with these little changes that deliver women new rights and actually autonomy in their lives every day, like reconstructing their house.
I mean, that seems so basic, right? Okay, let's go to our friend from Morocco. And the question for you is again, pointing to the World Bank data that shows that at the bottom of the World Bank survey, and actually various gender equality surveys, are countries that have discriminatory family laws. The link is so direct, yeah? Family law, discrimination and family law is the single most important element to women's equality. But when it comes to the Muslim world, the Moroccan family code, which actually inspired the launch of himself, if Morocco can do it, reform its family law, why can't the rest of the Muslim world? This is not divine law, it is man-made law. So what is needed is a political will, and Morocco certainly was hailed at that time as having one of the most progressive family laws in the Muslim world. That was 20 years ago. However, little has changed with regard to inheritance rights. That's a big struggle. Please tell us how this discrimination in inheritance and marital property rights affect women's economic well-being.
Thank you, Zaina. And thank you for the choice of the title. It resonates with what I wanted to say. Okay? It's really because we consider the family code, family law, is a bridge between the private life and the public life. If you don't cross that bridge, you stay at the other side. I agree with you that in 2004, family law was a kind of historic, at that time, breakthrough. After years and years of feminist activism, feminist movements, advocacy, and it was kind of quantum leap at different levels. First, because it's removed the divinity, from the family home. It was considered as any other law, which is not something that belongs. It's something that belongs to human beings, and it should go through the same process as any other laws. It's also contrary to the past. It was passed at the parliament, and by the parliament, contrary to the previous reforms, and that was something very, very significant. And also, it changed the name of the code of personal status to family code, because we're talking about different members of the family. And also, it's placed the family and the joint responsibility of the spouses. Whereas in the past, there was what was prevalent is obedience in return of maintenance. Okay, and so, however, with all this progress and with all the rights that were stipulated in the new reform, or in the 2004 reform, was still a handicap for the inheritance system. Why? Because we see that, with the exception of one provision that concerns compulsory will for the kids or for the children of the daughter, equally as the children of the son, because before the children of the son, the deceased son, were inherited, but the children of the daughter were not inherited. So that was a change with some, with still some discriminations, because the children of the son inherit with infinity, not the descendants, but the children of the daughter, they stop at the first generation, and that's a huge discrimination. Also, because the inheritance system we consider remain faithful to two paradigms. Okay, that's of the kiwama, what you call it's the husband is the sole provider and the sole maintainer of the family, and also to the I haven't said anything. Okay, yeah. So there are many examples that I can state concerning the discrimination, but I will not actually talk about them before because of time constraints. I would say that it's hard and it has a great impact on the economic situation. Let's consider only one example, and if the question, or maybe if you want more information, I can share it with you. One example, we have, women age, 60 and above, widows, age 60 and more, 92% of the widows. You can imagine how impactful the non-acquisition of assets and property can have on them. I don't think I have more time, but I have plenty of statistics that actually show the gaps that are a result of the non-access of women to property and to assets. That's I'm really sorry.
For us,
And thank you.
can someone help with this? Governed by Muslim family law, the whole issue of inheritance and the discrimination, that's like the last bastion for reform. And I think what the Moroccan women's movement have been doing in terms of gathering data, statistics, to make that case of the harm it causes, that is just so an important strategy that many of us who have not been using gathering data on the impact of discriminatory inheritance laws, we need to do that to push to make the case for it. So the last question in this first round was to memory. There are of course many forms of family laws in Africa. For us working with Africa is so interesting because customary law is such an important source, and codified, uncodified, religious, civil, customary law. So FEMNET is the coordinating committee member of the global campaign and has been doing really important work on gender transformative macro level economic policy making to advance gender equality. So from your experience working across Africa with numerous organizations, tell us more about the nature of family laws in the region and how these are impacting women and girls' economic participation.
Thank you so much, Zainab, and it's always great to be such an honor to be part of the campaign and also be in this space. I'll just share in terms of the nature of family law on the continent. It's very varied, it's very diverse, but I think the biggest challenge and the biggest disconnect is how the family law, when it comes to impacts in terms of economic rights for women, is that when we look at the broadness of we're talking of Muslim, Islamic law, we're talking of customary law, codified law, and at the end of the day, you find that it's gendered, it's heteronormative, and at the family level, usually religious or cultural law actually takes precedence in terms of practice. So, linking to the macro level work, macro level economic work that we've been doing, I'll just share, for example, today we're talking a lot about debt. And when you look at issues around debt, for example, and coming from the World Bank, there's after COVID, there was so much impact in terms of families being affected, and particularly women bearing the brunt. So you find that how it connects with family law is austerity measures where on the African continent, most of the countries are in debt distress. Most of the countries are actually going through very, very difficult austerity measures. There's increase in taxation. There's also increase in terms of there's privatization of public services. So today, when I was at a session which was talking about child marriage, and one of the ladies was sharing that, for example, women are not able to access maternal health because it has been privatized. And once it's been privatized, they are held and they're detained in hospital. And what does that do? It impacts on the family. So all these macro level issues really have an impact. We talk about trade, for example, the rights to movement, the rights to have registration, to have documentation, all that actually impacts in terms of looking at how family laws are very important. And I think it's important to really prioritize and to make the linkages. I think Zainab, we talked about how everything starts within the family, but also expanding in terms of the definition of families by diversity. When we talk about poverty eradication, we talk about cash flows, coming and supporting. If that definition is not expanded and does not recognize, non-binary gender diverse, it also impacts in terms of how certain family members and certain family laws impact, and they become invisible. So they are not invisible in terms of the data that is collected, which actually then impacts in terms of the economic decisions that are made at the macro level. But I'll expand more because the time is up in the next round.
Yeah, we'll move to, thank you, Mary, we'll move to the next round. You've heard all the harmful effects, some of them, key harmful effects. Now, we hope to give you some hope that change is possible. So get on board, and get some sharing from our speakers. And I'm going to start with Minister Antonia. If you can follow up on the government's commitment to reform the marital regime, and it's taken 14 years, in spite of the commitment. So what is it? What's going to make it possible for the government to really move forward and get this reform in Chile?
This has been a discussion in our Congress during 14 years, but it hasn't been this intense. Because in Chile we have a presidential system in which the Congress discusses what the executive power decides to prioritize. And we have made candidate reading and priorities in our Congress work. That's why we are 14 years young. And also because there is a specific disposition on the social cultural regime that says that women can decide about all of the family conflicts, but can have one specific part of it that's called the reserved. That's what happened. Take me out because I don't have it in Spanish, but as a good English. But you can have a real protected goods, but also only if you can prove that it was driving to your formal work. So, house wives, so informal workers, domestic workers, don't actually have that protection, but in the beliefs of many of our decision makers, that it is a legal protection to women. But what we say is that we are not looking for protection, we are looking for freedom and equality.
Neza, you can, here's your chance to continue. if you can talk to us about the reform effort that you're making, what are the women's groups asking for? And is there hope for positive change pertaining to inheritance?
So I think the advocacy, of the feminist movement didn't stop after the 2004 reform. It continued. And then there was a report by the National Council of Human Rights that said that most of the impoverishment of women is due to the inheritance system. And that's created a debate in the Moroccan society. And this debate, was led by feminist movement, by enlightened religious scholars, by experts, by researchers, and it continued until the king gave his speech on the throne speech in 2022, saying that if we want to actually achieve sustainable development goals, we have to actually promote the rights of women and make them participate in society. So, and give them the chance and the opportunities and the access to resources, etc. And then this was followed by his letter to the head of government asking to constitute a committee, a commission of different stakeholders. It wasn't only one party, but all, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of the Public Prosecution Office, the National Council of Human Rights, the High Council of Ulema and scholars, and etc. And that's the hope. That's really the hope. Why? Because in the past, it was like designing a committee of people, mostly from religious, religious people and ulema. But now there is a huge change because the religious partners or religious stakeholders are important, but we have to do some kind of jurisprudence and refer to the enlightened period in Islam, when Islamic law was referring to reasoning, enlightened jurisprudence. And that's the first form. And the highest, for example, authority in the country, the King of Morocco, is in favor of this change. So that's an opportunity. Another opportunity is, the King's message is clear. The family affair concerns all stakeholders. Okay. The second maybe hope is that the support of some renowned religious scholars. Feminist movement works with religious scholars in conducting research, in actually improving the image, of let's say women in society, promoting equality and equity, and referring to the goals of Islam, which is justice, equality, etc. And the rise, there is also a rise of the young generation of feminists. They are very creative, very present in social media, and then they're actually doing a great job. As concerns equality and individual freedoms. And progressive political and union supports the feminist movement, and also the demands go in line with one of the ambitions of the new development model, which states that one of its ambitions is commitment to gender equality and the recognition of the place and role of women in the economy and society. So, what are the feminist movements? There is a huge number of feminist movements. A big one, just one sentence. Okay, I have 1 minute. It's okay. You can keep.
That's our timekeeper.
Show it, please. Thank you. Okay, so the feminist movements they're gathered in coordination, in a network, and they're demanding a comprehensive and profound reform of the family law, because we no longer negotiate this. We deserve to be equal to men, so that's the moment where, and that's the time to actually demand full equality between men and women.
This is really exciting for us in the Muslim world. What's happening in Morocco is really exciting, and Morocco to show the model. I think we need to get your king to speak to my king. Is that like a king's conference? Bring about change. We've always wanted, can the king of Morocco speak with the king of Saudi Arabia? and get the OIC to move forward on Muslim family law reform. Yeah, so that's a strategy, inshallah. And now we're going to take the opportunity to hear from the Palestinian Maintenance Fund. It's going to be on YouTube, and it's going to be from Fida Ibrahim Al-Baluti about how this fund, maintenance fund, has worked. And this is really something that we in the Muslim world is trying to push, like a child support agency, where getting maintenance is not something you fight in court, that women have to spend time running up and down the court system, the judicial system, to fight for the support of the children. And that this is an administrative matter, as the reform in many Western countries have shown. This is an administrative matter. Every kid needs to be fed, needs to be supported, needs to be maintained. So if we can show the video.
معكم فداء الباروتي المستشارة الإعلامية في صندوق النفقة الفلسطيني. بداية، فكرة صندوق النفقة الفلسطيني تزامنت مع نشوء السلطة الوطنية الفلسطينية، وكمان تزامنت مع الاجتياح الإسرائيلي لمناطق الضفة الغربية في العام 2001. وهذا طبعا ترتب عليه آثار اجتماعية، آثار اقتصادية، تأثرت حقوق الفئات المتروكة من نساء ورجال وأطفال وكبار سن وذوي إعاقة. ونتيجة لهي الحاجة الملحة لدعم النساء والأطفال وبقية الفئات المستحقة للنفقة، تم بلورة صندوق النفقة الفلسطيني اعتمادا على منظومة حقوق الإنسان وبما ينسجم مع التزامات السلطة الوطنية الفلسطينية بالاتفاقات الدولية، كما التزامها بالقانون الأساسي لحماية حقوق الفئات المتروكة. أهمية صندوق النفقة الفلسطيني ممكن نحكي هون عن عدد من المستويات، أبرزها وجود الصندوق كهيئة وطنية عامة بشكل مصدر من مصادر الدعم، كيف عبر كفالته للحق بالنفقة للفئات المتروكة، وهذا طبعا أثر على شعورهم بالأمن والأمان والحماية على أكثر من مستوى. هو كمان يعتبر وسيلة قانونية أفضل وأسرع وأقل اصطداما مع الأزواج السابقين أو العائلات الممتدة أو المكلفين بدفع النفقة، وطبعا هون بيمنع الصراعات اللي ممكن تنشأ بفعل المواجهة المباشرة. أيضا في مستوى ثاني بنحكي عن قوة داخلية تملكت النساء، صار في عندهم تمكين في ذواتهم وتعميق إحساسهم بالقوة نتيجة رد اعتبارهم، نتيجة إحساسهم بالكرامة اللي كانت ممتهنة لما كانوا يطلبوا يطلبوا المساعدات سواء من الزوج أو من عائلة الزوج أو من الأقارب المحيطين، وهذا تحديدا يعني حماهم من ذل الحاجة أو تعرضهم للاستغلال. بالنسبة للمستوى الثالث يعني هي له علاقة باستخدام المصادر المعرفية القانونية، الموارد المادية اللي هي كفالة الحق بالنفقة، واللي هي كمان أثرت على المورد المعنوي. صارت النساء تتخذ قرارات بحياتها وبحياة أبنائها، صارت النساء تقرر إنه تسكن لحالها مع أبنائها عشان يعني تبعد عن اللا استقرار في بيوت العائلات وتحقق لها السكينة وتبني مستقبل أفضل لها ولأولادها. وأيضا
on maintenance funds and child support agencies and all that. And in Singapore, there is a special court, just maintenance court. And men give all kinds of excuses why they can't pay, but the Singapore judges, Singapore how strict they are. You don't pay by 4:30 p.m., you go to jail. At 4:30 p.m., all the men are standing in line with checks and cash to pay all the backdated maintenance. So, it's all about the will, right? Okay, so, Thea, if we can pick up on you again. In terms of the World Bank research, what does the trend of reform look like? How does reform happen and what leads to changes in the law, actually?
Thank you. Well, if I can sum it up in one word, I would say women. Women and civil society organizations in particular. So when we have looked what drives reform, we see the role of civil society in raising issues to the legislators. But then we also see when there are more women legislators, they pass new laws. And
data and evidence, like the ones that you produced, but also others, are very important in making a case. And it's unfortunate that we have to justify and continually make the economic case, the human rights case, and all these cases, and we can make that case, thankfully. But having data and evidence and inspiration from countries like Morocco, Sweden is one of the leaders, but sometimes it helps to have a country in their own region that's making those changes, that have the similar cultural laws. And so one thing that we see from our research is that change is possible. And one of the things we report every year is not just the status of laws, but also the change that happens around the world. And this latest year, we report 18 countries making reforms. Most of those reforms were related to job restrictions, to workplace protections, to parental leave. Very few on family law. We have 4 or 5 countries focused on this area, which is not enough, honestly. And so we really need to make the case for more reform and part of the women's groups. And that support from the bottom is important, but also political will. So if I look at this panel, we have women's rights groups, we have government, international organizations, really all advocating for the same things, speaking with the same voice, and I think that really helps to drive change.
Thank you, Tia. And also the research done on violence against women, domestic violence acts that criminalize domestic violence, and that research also shows it is the women's movement that's like the biggest impetus to change. And we've always looked at the violence against women movement as a model. If how did they make domestic violence, criminalizing domestic violence, a global priority issue, to pressure on governments to criminalize domestic violence. And if that can be done on the issue of domestic violence, why can't that be done on the issue of family law? So that's an important model, and I can't remember, like maybe after 20 years of the General Assembly resolution urging governments to criminalize domestic violence, by now, I think we have close to 100 countries that have already passed domestic violence laws to criminalize domestic violence. And we hope that our campaign on family law reform will reach that level of awareness, global awareness, urgency, and success as well. So we go now to memory. The Maputo Protocol, and I think that our African families are very lucky to have the Maputo Protocol, very strong protocol, of the African Charter of Human Rights, United Rights of Women, which other regions don't have. So how can the women's groups, women's movement use the Maputo Protocol to advance women's rights, and especially on family law reform? What are the possibilities and opportunities to use Maputo Protocol for family law?
So last year we celebrated 20 years of Maputo Protocol, which is a great milestone, but we're still pushing for universal ratification, and beyond ratification to ensure that there's implementation and accountability, and most importantly, there is funding that actually supports implementation of the articles of the progressive Maputo Protocol. And when it really comes to family law, and I think the Maputo Protocol is also, I think it's an instrument that we have used for strategic litigation, for inheritance rights, for rights of widows, for rights of the girl child, for sexual and reproductive health rights. And within that, it also creates jurisprudence to share about Morocco and the what Moroccan movement, the feminist movement has done. And I think Maputo Protocol also has supported that. And I think one thing which also is interesting is how the issue around the age of majority. So we see that as a sticking issue, where there are, in some countries, age of majority for girls can be 15, and in Sierra Leone, I think there are a lot of countries in Africa where that the Maputo Protocol actually protects. So the age of majority can be 50 years for the girl and maybe 17 years for the boy. So Maputo Protocol has really been used to ensure that there's equality in terms of the age of majority for both boys and girls. And that has an implication because at 50 years, if a girl there's a risk she gets married, she's a risk of any pregnancy, and yes, it's a whole cycle of poverty. She's not able to access education, access employment, and it becomes a life cycle when she's an adult, married young, and her economic rights are actually infringed. So Maputo Protocol has really been instrumental in terms of pushing that. But beyond that is also the Africa Human Rights Mechanisms, where we have the Africa Human Rights Commission, the Africa Court as well, and also the General Comments, which expands the implementation of Maputo Protocol, because we've seen a lot changing in the landscape. Now we have technology-assisted violence and the like, so having general comments that actually expand the mandate and the implementation is very instrumental. So having legal rights is one thing, but having substantial rights is the other thing. So we still push in terms of, so that there's also policy coherence and there's harmonization, and that actually becomes, the provisions become constitutional. Because once they are constitutional, they are guaranteed. So the push, the fight is still going on, but we do have hope in terms of having an instrument that we can hold member states to account, and we can progressively ensure that it's also used where we see a lot of backlash.
No, it's very inspiring to see how the US movement use the Maputo Protocol in very effective ways, and sustain the action. Okay, Hishama, the last question in this round is for you. Really, as the manager for the global campaign, if you can tell us what's happening at global level. Why is the urgency in reform of family law necessary, especially in today's context of global crisis and everything going wrong?
Sure, thank you. So we know there are national and grassroots movements, and we know that family laws are on a slow pace of legislation to see reform. Sri Lanka, for example, Muslim groups have been advocating for reform of the 80-year-old colonial legacy law. For over 40 plus years, we're still not seeing an ounce of change. So the pace is excruciatingly slow and very personal. But we're increasingly witnessing ongoing and emerging efforts, as you can hear from just this panel alone. So clear examples coming from the Middle East and Asia, from faith communities, Muslim women's groups in Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan. There are so many amazing activisms that's coming up. And what we're seeing is that there needs to be a global call, right? So really the global campaign exists to bolster and support these regional and national voices that are coming up. These national efforts are certainly resulting in regional action. So there's a vibrant now Africa Family Law Network that has been established by Femnet and a few other founding organizations, looking at the Maputo Protocol and using it to reform family laws. In the Middle East, groups like Equality, organizations like Equality now have a coalition for family law reform. Actually, Sweden Active Alliance are now working on Christian family law reforms in the Middle East, which is a really interesting area of work. Back in America, we're seeing Cadem and partners work on child custody matters and the false parent alienation syndrome and the economic impacts on mothers and children. And Musawa, of course, has the campaign for justice and Muslim family laws in multiple regions. So this is the moment. It's happening now. It should have happened many years ago as part of the feminist sort of uprisings, but it's happening now for sure. At the global level, the global campaign for family law, again, exists to bolster and support these national and regional efforts by insisting in the global space that in order in order to ensure gender equality, family law is a prerequisite, hands down. And we're saying this to international human rights movements. We're saying this to the international global feminist and human rights spaces, and we're also definitely urging governments. In doing so, we're working very closely with CEDAW, with CHR, with the UN Working Group of Discrimination Against Women and Girls, So really a lot of truly exciting work happening, a lot of collaboration and movement building taking place. And with this being the 30th year of the International Year of the Families, our moment has come for family law reform to be one of the key asks of feminist and human rights movements and groups.
Thank you, Krishna. And we really hope to get all your support and your energy to push this forward, because really from now onwards towards 2030, we really hope that change is going to take place. Yeah. So we're running out of time, so just quickly, I'm going to ask all the speakers to just to conclude, ask what are your asks for the audience here? Like just one or two asks so that people can go home and think about it and turn this into some form of action at your level. Okay, you want to start?
So, the data speaks for itself. Women have over 2/3 of the rights of men, so I would ask that you raise awareness in your own countries and elect officials that will legislate and reform laws for women, and then also work on implementing those laws. So the latest data shows that only 40% of mechanisms to implement laws are in place, and we need those in place so that women's rights exist in practice and not just in the law. So that would be my ask.
I have three asks. The first one is translating policy to action. I think we really need to push for that to happen. My second ask is really on, I think it's more urgent than ever. Right now, the anti-gender, anti-rights movement. In Africa, we have the African Family Values Framework, which the opposition is actually working on. So more than ever, we need to be more proactive in terms of redefining and reclaiming family. Because if you talk about family law, and we are under so much, and there's already movements which are defining what family should be and what family values should be, it will undermine all the international standards, all the international norms, everything that we as a feminist movement have been pushing for. So I think my call is to say we need to be more proactive and collaborate and really think how family law connects with economic justice, it connects with climate justice, it connects, and it's important to fund movements and to bring back family law as a priority. So feminist movements, networks, they're really calling for supporting family law so that we claim it as a priority.
Thank you, Mary. Minister?
Thank you. I will make two invitations and one call to action. The first invitation is because I saw a Palestinian leader talking there. Tomorrow at the e-conference room, we'll be holding a side event at the United Nations, where I'm honored to be speaking with the Palestinian leaders about Palestinian women's rights and social protection. Because from the south, we believe in a ceasefire and the rightful right to Palestinian women. Time, 11:30. And the second thing is that I would like to invite you to know about our Papitos Corazón bill. And if I would like to translate it to English, it would like Daddy Heart. Daddy Heart is a common name in Chile to know the abandoned absent fathers. And due to that law that we passed as government, we have improved in 310% since May 2023, in this month, the child support payments that are by 97% that's to single mothers. And that's by using finance data and interoperating system with the banks. The third thing I wanted to say, I'm sorry, it will take a little bit of time, is that according to the Spanish scholar Nuria Varela, there is an average rate of years in the world, 90 years, between the women made their first picket line to get the vote and the time they got the vote. And I want to recall that we did that, I said we did that, we did that as women, with no international system, with no women in decision making, and so it means that it was the women's and feminist movement. So I want you to push us, because we don't have 90 years now. And as the woman against Pinochet's regime in Chile used to say to recover our democracy, we want it today, not tomorrow. So I invite you to push us as a social Yeah, I have actually 3 goals. The first one is, not for the endorsements, of our demands. And I wish my delegation was here, so that I can say, that they have, we were auditioned, by the way. We were auditioned by the committee in charge of the family code, and we provided, our demands. We were justified with statistics, with studies. It was, argumented. So I hope we will take them into consideration. That's our goal, and if you know any of them, please let them know. The second goal is to the international community. I think this is the opportunity to advocate that states, to make states more accountable, for their violations of human rights, not only in Morocco, but in the global world. And these violations of women's rights, de jure and de facto. Because through sustained monitoring and collaboration with the civil society. My last goal is directed to donors. Well, more funding and technical support for national NGOs, and also as well as international movements and networks such as Women Learning Partnership, because of the opportunities this big organization offers to partners from all the global south to collaborate, learn, and support each other. A strong international movement can make the difference. Thank you.
I actually have questions, so I'll try to repeat myself. But firstly, I'm going to take up Mr. Antonia's plea to hold accountable and say we want all governments and everyone working with governments, everyone who has the opportunity to influence governments, to really examine and reimagine their family laws in a more equitable and just manner. And also family court systems. So even if family laws are fantastic, Australia, for example, seems to be reforming their court systems every year because of an ongoing review process. That is healthy for all families. Also to donor and funding communities, these national level activism efforts and advocacy are not too sensitive to do or too complicated. These are necessary actions. It affects women in their everyday lives. So family law reform needs to be high on the agenda, and movements need to be amplified and resourced. And lastly, to feminist movements and human rights organizations and all of us in the room, in order for there to be gender equality, we are to achieve the SDGs, if we are to advance our rights in every aspect of women's lives, family law has to be set, because the discrimination truly begins in the family. And transformative change begins by re-examining what has been falling through the gaps. And family law really has been, in terms of the feminist movement spaces, ongoing. And the human rights and women's rights does not end on the front door of any household. And that should be our call to action, essentially. And of course, a pitch for the global campaign. If you're interested in collaborating, learning more about the global campaign supporting family law, we're a team of multiples around the world, but please do connect with us. The global campaign is your space. We're trying to be a highly co-creative campaign and truly encompassing of many multiple types of laws and contexts around the world. So this is your space. Please join us and let's collaborate.
all the speakers for your wonderful interventions. I'm afraid we don't have time for Q&A because it's already 7 o'clock. Time for iftar, time for snacks to celebrate. And I want to invite, and I really want to thank the members, the coordinating committee of the Global Campaign and the Church of Sweden for generously sharing with us your beautiful space here, and to thank all of you for being here with us, and to really, really hope that, to join us in bringing about this global energy together, harnessing this energy to really push for family law reform. The time is now. I mean, we've waited for too long, we've achieved so many other things, but when it comes to the family, everyone is so scared, untethered hopes to bring about equality in the family. So really, the fears are over. The facts are there, the data is there to make our compelling case for reform, so the time is now to move this forward. Thank you so much for being here. And just a little ceremony, can I invite the Reverend Frederick of this Church of Sweden and Imam Al-Nashif for Muslims for Progressive Values to just say a few words to observe Lent and Ramadan and to bring us in solidarity.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Church of Sweden in New York. My name is Fredrik Olila, and I am the senior pastor of this Swedish Lutheran congregation here in New York. It has been a pleasure to host you here tonight, so I hope you feel very welcome, and it has been an interesting seminar to attend. So thank you so much for that. So I will say a few words about Lent in Christianity, and especially in the tradition of the Church of Sweden. And to fast is to give up something in order to gain something else. Lent gives us time for reflection, prayer, and time to grow in faith. And Lent begins on Ash Wednesday, just under 7 weeks before Easter, and this year it was the 14th of February. And Lent ends at Easter Eve. And Lent is 40 days and is broken every Sunday. It is still Lent, but Sundays may contain what you choose to meet during the rest of Lent. So this is a special time during the year in Christianity. So it ends in just a few weeks. So we are past more than 50% of this year's Lent. So now I will leave you.
Thank you, Reverend. My name is Al-Nashif. My name is Al-Nashif. I will first do the Fatiha in Arabic, followed by the English translation. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. In the name of the compassionate and the compassionate. Praise be to God who all the world made, the compassionate and the compassionate. King and Queen of the day of faith, thee only do we adore, and of thee only do we crave aid. Guide us to the path which is straight, the path of those from whom thy love is great, not those on whom is hate, nor they that deviate. Amen. The Islamic calendar of Ramadan is a month of fasting from sunrise to sunset. Fasting is prescribed to you, sacred says the Quran, that you may learn self-restraint. Self-restraint is indeed very difficult. God knows how angry I am right now. We are at the affairs of the world, be it in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, whether it is Sudan, and of course in the occupied territories and in Gaza, in Palestine. For me personally, I hope the fasting to calm my spirits, to connect deeper with the Creator in me, and to somehow find meaning in all the suffering we witness, particularly at the hands of our own American government. As we eat the food tonight, harvested by the back-breaking jobs of immigrant workers in America, may we taste each bite, we relish each sip of water, and be thankful for the bounty of Mother Earth. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious and merciful. Let's eat.
Thank you.